"That rusty Honda is embarrassing our family," my brother Marcus yelled across the Riverside Country Club parking lot. "Get a real car, or don't come around." I stared at my keys, then glanced at my 2014 Honda Civic. It wasn't rusty. I took great care of it. But it definitely didn't belong next to the BMWs, Mercedes, and Porsches lined up for our family's monthly gathering. "The car runs fine, Marcus," I said, keeping my voice low. "That's not the point." His face was flushed. "Look around. Do you see what everyone else drives? People judge us by what we show up in." Our sister Victoria nodded beside her spotless white Range Rover. "Emma, you're 31. It's time to grow up and drive something that matches your status." "What status?" Marcus snapped. "She works for some little non-profit, makes $35,000 a year. At her age, I was driving a Porsche and living in a penthouse." Let me back up a little. The disaster started 3 hours earlier, the moment I pulled into the lot for our monthly meet-up. Dad had been pacing near the entrance, checking his gold Rolex like a countdown clock. "Emma, you're 20 minutes late." "Sorry, Dad. I was finishing up a project proposal." "Another one of your computer things?" Victoria asked, eyeing me in her designer heels and a dress that cost more than my rent. "Still playing with keyboards?" "I teach tech skills to kids who can't afford computers," I said. "Oh right," Marcus added, adjusting his $500 tie. "Your charity stuff. When are you going to grow up and get a real job? Let me know if you want to continue this or need a version trimmed for video narration." Inside the club, the interrogation had begun in earnest. We'd been seated at the family's usual table in the main dining room, surrounded by the city's elite business families. The Hendersons were at the next table. He was the mayor, she owned 3 boutique hotels. The Pattersons sat across the room. Both were surgeons who'd built a private practice empire. The Williamses held court near the windows, real estate moguls who developed half the city's upscale neighborhoods. "Look around, Emma," Mom had said, gesturing subtly at the other families. "These are successful people. Their children drive appropriate cars, wear quality clothes, live in respectable homes." "I live in a perfectly good home, a starter house in Millbrook," I'd replied. Victoria had scoffed. "That's where college graduates live for 2 years before moving up to something better." "Some of us care more about mortgage-free living than impressing neighbors," I'd said. That's when Marcus had really gotten started. "Mortgage-free, Emmy? You're 31. You should be building wealth, not just avoiding debt. You should be investing in appreciating assets, not just scraping by." "I'm investing in," I started, but Victoria had laughed. "What? Your Honda? That thing is 10 years old." "It's 7 years old, and it's reliable." Dad had shaken his head sadly. "Sweetheart, we're trying to help you understand something important. Success isn't just about being comfortable. It's about building something impressive, something that commands respect." "Like what Marcus has built?" I'd asked. Marcus had smiled proudly. "Exactly. I'm a senior partner at Henderson, Morrison, and Associates. I bill $400 an hour. I drive a Porsche 911. I live in a downtown penthouse, and I'm closing on a vacation home in Aspen next month. And Victoria," she had announced, "I own 3 high-end boutiques in the shopping district. My stores generated $1.2 million in revenue last year." "That's impressive," I'd said genuinely. "Now tell them what you do," Mom had prompted hopefully. "I run educational programs that teach technology skills to children who can't afford computers at home." The table had fallen silent. Around us, I could see members of other prominent families enjoying their conversations about business deals, investment portfolios, and vacation homes. "That's nice," Dad had said finally. "But what's your 5-year plan? What are you building toward?" "I'm building toward helping more children gain access to technology education," I'd replied. Marcus had sighed heavily. "Emma, that's not a business plan. That's a hobby with good intentions." "I disagree. Look, I appreciate that you want to help people, Victoria had said in the condescending tone she'd perfected over the years. But you can't live your whole life as a volunteer. You need to think about your future, your retirement, your ability to contribute meaningfully to society. I believe I am contributing meaningfully. By what metric? Marcus had challenged. How many people have you employed? How much tax revenue have you generated? What kind of economic impact are you making? I'd started to answer, but Dad had cut me off. The point is, sweetheart, we're concerned about your long-term prospects. Teaching computer basics to kids is admirable, but it's not sustainable as a career. Why not? Because non-profits don't pay well, Mom had explained patiently. Because you're not building any equity or ownership. Because you're essentially limiting yourself to whatever grants and donations you can secure. That's when Mrs. Henderson had walked over from the next table, smiling warmly at my parents. Robert, Linda, how lovely to see you both. And Marcus, congratulations on making senior partner. The mayor was just telling me about the brilliant legal work you did on the waterfront development project. Marcus had beamed. Thank you, Mrs. Henderson. It was a complex transaction, but we managed to structure it favorably for all parties. And Victoria, I adore what you've done with your newest boutique. The window displays are absolutely stunning. Thank you so much. We're actually expanding into accessories next quarter. Mrs. Henderson had then turned to me with polite interest. And Emma, your parents are always so proud of you. What field are you in? The table had gone quiet. I could see my family tensing, waiting to see how I'd handle the question. I work in educational technology, I'd said simply. Oh, how interesting. Are you with one of the tech companies downtown? I work independently, focusing on underserved communities. That's wonderful. It's so important to give back. After Mrs. Henderson had returned to her table, my family had looked at me with a mixture of pity and frustration. Do you see the problem? Victoria had asked. When successful people ask about your career, you have to give vague, apologetic answers. I wasn't apologetic. You said you work independently, Marcus had pointed out. That's code for unemployed. I'm not unemployed. But you're not really employed either, Dad had said. You're doing freelance work, project to project, grant to grant. There's no stability, no growth potential, no real business foundation. The conversation had continued like this for another hour, with my family systematically dismantling every aspect of my life choices. My career was unsustainable. My income was inadequate. My living situation was embarrassing. My car was a reflection of failure. The final straw came as we left the restaurant. Just promise you'll at least think about making some changes, Mom said as we headed for the parking lot. What kind of changes? Get a real job with a real company, Marcus said. Do something like corporate training or consulting. Use your skills in a way that actually pays. And buy a decent car. Victoria jumped in, something that doesn't make people pity you. That's when Marcus lost it about my Honda, yelling loud enough for half the lot to hear. Now, 30 minutes later, I was driving home with Marcus' red Porsche glued to my rearview mirror. Clearly, he wasn't done. He probably had one last lecture lined up about being responsible and setting realistic goals. I lived in Millbrook, a middle-class neighborhood Marcus and Victoria always looked down on. The houses were neat, small, with trimmed lawns and one-car garages. It was the kind of place people like them couldn't wait to leave behind. As I pulled into my driveway, I saw Marcus park behind me, already shaking his head at my plain little house. White paint, blue shutters, a tiny front porch, it looked like every other home on the street. Not flashy. Nothing that would earn nods at the country club. Marcus stepped out of his Porsche and walked over, his pace firm, like he'd spent the whole ride rehearsing. Emma, I followed you because we're not done talking. What conversation? The one about your future, about making better choices. He gestured at my house. Look at this place. It's fine for a starter home, but you've been here for 4 years. When are you going to upgrade? When are you going to start building real equity? I own this house outright, Marcus. That's not the point. The point is growth, progression, moving up in the world. He looked at my Honda sitting in the driveway. And that car needs to go. I don't care if it runs fine. It makes you look like you're struggling. I'm not struggling. Then prove it. Show me one thing in your life that demonstrates success. One thing that shows you're building wealth instead of just scraping by. I looked at my brother, who had spent the entire evening lecturing me about appearances and status symbols, who was so concerned about what other people thought that he couldn't see past his own assumptions. Marcus, since you're so concerned about cars, would you like to see my collection? Your collection? He snorted. What? Do you have 2 Hondas hidden somewhere? I walked to my garage and pressed the button on my key fob. The large door began to rise slowly. These are my weekend cars, I said as the door revealed the contents of my garage. Inside the spacious 3-car garage sat a midnight blue Lamborghini Huracan EVO, a silver Aston Martin DB11, and a black Ferrari 488 GTB. The combined value was approximately $750,000. Marcus stood frozen in my driveway, his mouth hanging open, his carefully prepared lecture forgotten. What? How? Where did you get these? I bought them, I said calmly, walking over to run my hand along the Ferrari's sleek surface. With what money? You work at a non-profit making $35,000 a year. Marcus, you're absolutely right that I work with underprivileged children. What you don't know is that I don't work for a non-profit organization. I own several of them. What do you mean you own them? Future Minds Foundation, Digital Dreams Initiative, and Technology Access Alliance. Combined, we serve over 15,000 children annually across 23 states. Marcus was still staring at the cars, his brain trying to process what he was seeing. But that doesn't explain how you can afford. Because those foundations are funded by my primary business, the one you've never bothered to ask about despite dismissing it as computer projects for the past 8 years. I pulled out my phone and showed him the app I'd been working on during family gatherings, the one they all thought was me playing with technology. Digital Learning Dynamics. We create comprehensive educational software platforms for schools, corporations, and government agencies. Our annual revenue last year was $67 million. Marcus' face went completely white. He grabbed onto his Porsche for support. $67 million. $67.3 million in revenue, with a net profit of $31.8 million. We have active contracts with 1,247 school districts, 89 Fortune 500 companies, and 12 government agencies. I opened the hood of the Lamborghini, revealing the pristine V10 engine. This particular car cost $267,000. I paid cash because I don't believe in financing luxury items. You paid cash for all 3 cars. The Aston Martin was $198,000. The Ferrari was $280,000. I also paid cash for this house, which I had completely renovated and expanded last year. Marcus looked around my property with new eyes, suddenly noticing details he'd missed. The driveway wasn't just concrete, it was decorative pavers that probably cost $15,000. The landscaping wasn't simple, it was professionally designed and maintained. The garage wasn't standard, it was oversized and climate-controlled. Emma, I don't understand. If you have this much money, why do you live so normally? Because I value substance over appearances. Because I'd rather invest in my business and my charitable work than in impressing people at country clubs. But the Honda gets excellent gas mileage, is reliable, and doesn't make me a target for theft or carjacking. It's practical daily transportation. I walked him around to the side of the garage, where he could see into my home office through a large window. Inside was a technology setup that would make most corporations jealous. 12 large monitors arranged across 3 workstations, servers humming quietly in a climate-controlled rack, and equipment worth at least $150,000. This is where I built Digital Learning Dynamics. This is where I manage contracts worth tens of millions of dollars. This is where I design educational programs that are transforming how children learn technology skills. Marcus pressed his face against the window, staring at the sophisticated setup. But you never said anything. You let us all think you were just doing charity work. I'm doing charity work. That's the point you're missing. My business generates enough profit that I can fund extensive charitable programs while still building personal wealth. My phone rang, interrupting our conversation. I glanced at the screen and saw it was Dr. Sarah Chin from Harvard University. Excuse me, I need to take this. Hello, Dr. Chin. Emma, excellent news. The university board has approved your proposal. Harvard will be implementing digital learning dynamics across all our computer science and education programs starting next semester. Marcus' eyes widened as he read the caller ID on my phone screen. That's fantastic, Dr. Chin. What's the contract value? $12.7 million over 4 years, with automatic renewal options. This will be the largest educational technology contract in Harvard's history. I'm honored. My development team will begin customization immediately. After I hung up, Marcus was staring at me like I was a complete stranger. Harvard University. You just signed a $12 million contract with Harvard. One of many. We also have active contracts with Stanford, MIT, Yale, Princeton, and Caltech. All the Ivy League schools, most of them, plus major state universities, community colleges, and specialized institutions. Education is a $750 billion industry, Marcus. Technology spending in education grows by 15% annually. I unlocked my phone and showed him our client dashboard. These are our current active contracts. Total value, $347 million over the next 5 years. Marcus sat down heavily on my decorative stone retaining wall, looking like he might faint. $347 million in confirmed contracts. Yes. We also have $89 million in pending proposals and $156 million in renewal options. Emma, how long have you been doing this? I started Digital Learning Dynamics 9 years ago, the summer after I graduated from MIT.
MIT?
You went to MIT. Full academic scholarship plus a research fellowship, Masters in Computer Science with a specialization in educational technology. Marcus put his head in his hands. We all thought you went to State University because when I tried to tell you about MIT, Dad interrupted to talk about your law school graduation, and the conversation never came back to my education. I walked over to the Ferrari and opened the driver's door. Would you like to see the rest of the property? There are some other things you might find interesting. There's more. I started the Ferrari. The engine roared to life with a sound that probably woke half the neighborhood, and I gestured for Marcus to follow me in his Porsche. We drove around to the back of my property, where what appeared to be a small guest house sat among mature oak trees. What's that building? My primary development facility. The home office is for routine administrative work. This is where we create the actual software products. I used a key card to open the building, revealing a state-of-the-art technology laboratory that looked like something from a major corporation's R&D department. Marcus walked through the facility in complete bewilderment, looking at servers, development workstations, testing equipment, and prototyping stations worth more than most people's annual salaries. This lab cost $3.8 million to build and equip, I explained. We develop and test all our educational software here before deployment. You built a $3.8 million laboratory behind your house. I needed a secure, private development environment. Commercial real estate would have been more expensive and less convenient. Marcus stopped in front of a wall covered with patents, awards, and certificates. What are all these? Patents for various educational technology innovations, awards from the Department of Education, the National Science Foundation, and various educational organizations, certifications for security, accessibility, and educational effectiveness. He pointed to a framed certificate. Is that you? With the Secretary of Education. Last year at the National Education Technology Conference, Digital Learning Dynamics won the Innovation Award for our adaptive learning algorithms. Marcus leaned in, scanning the wall full of awards. Outstanding contribution to educational technology. Entrepreneur of the Year, Technology Sector. Innovation Leadership Award. Educational Excellence Recognition. Emma, why have you never shown us any of this? When would I have? Every family gathering, it's all you and Victoria bragging about your careers while brushing mine off like some silly side project. I sat at one of our development stations and logged in. These are our real-time metrics. Right now, 1.3 million students are using our learning platforms. We're active in 47 states and 18 countries. Today alone, we'll bring in about $290,000 per day. Yep. So while you were lecturing me about getting a real job, we made more than most people earn in 5 years. Marcus stared at the screen. Active users. Lessons completed. Revenue. Profit margins. Charitable projects. I opened another window. Future Minds Foundation has donated $18.7 million to education over the past 5 years. We've built 47 computer labs, funded 156 full college scholarships, and trained over 800 teachers. $18.7 million in direct giving. Yes. And when you count our time and free licenses, it's another $23 million in value. Marcus stayed silent for a while, just taking it all in. The country club, he said finally. What about it? When Mrs. Henderson asked what you do, and you said you work in educational tech, I thought you were downplaying. But you were being honest. I just made it sound small. I made it sound honest. I didn't feel the need to announce my net worth to someone I barely know. What is your net worth? I considered the question carefully. Between the business valuation, real estate holdings, investment portfolio, and liquid assets, approximately $94 million. Marcus made a choking sound. $94 million. It fluctuates based on market conditions and business performance, but yes, that's the current estimate. Emma, you're worth $94 million, and we've been treating you like a charity case. You've been treating me like someone whose work doesn't matter because it doesn't produce visible status symbols. My phone buzzed with a text message. I glanced at it and smiled. What is it? The Department of Defense. They want to discuss adapting our educational technology for military training applications. Potential contract value, $47 million. The Pentagon wants to hire you. Educational technology and training technology use very similar frameworks. Our adaptive learning algorithms could revolutionize how the military trains personnel. I showed him the text message, which included a request to schedule a meeting with senior officials at the Pentagon. This would be our first major government defense contract. It could open up an entirely new market segment. Marcus looked around the laboratory, finally understanding the scale and sophistication of what I'd built. When you were working on your laptop during family dinners, I was usually reviewing contract proposals, managing development projects, or communicating with clients. The work doesn't stop just because it's Sunday dinner. And when we told you to stop playing with computers, you were telling a multimillionaire CEO to abandon the business that was generating more revenue in a month than most people see in a lifetime. We walked back toward the house, where my 3 supercars sat gleaming in the garage like a very expensive rebuke to every assumption my family had made about my success. Emma, I owe you the biggest apology of my life. Yes, you do. We've been completely wrong about everything, about your work, your success, your choices. You've been so focused on what success looks like from the outside that you never bothered to find out what it actually looks like on the inside. Marcus looked at his red Porsche, which suddenly seemed much less impressive parked next to my collection. Your Honda is practical daily transportation that doesn't draw unwanted attention or make you a target for theft. When I want to enjoy performance driving, I have options. And your house is paid for, customized to my needs, and provides the privacy and security necessary for running a multi-million-dollar technology business. And your clothes are comfortable and appropriate for my work environment. I don't need designer labels to validate my success. My phone rang again. This time it was my CFO, Janet Rodriguez. Hi, Janet. Emma, I wanted to give you the final numbers for Q4. Revenue was $21.4 million, up 43% from last quarter. Net profit was $12.8 million. Marcus' jaw dropped as he overheard the numbers. Excellent. What's our cash position? $31.7 million in liquid assets, plus the $18 million in the expansion fund. Perfect. Go ahead and authorize the new East Coast facility already in progress. The Boston Development Center will be operational by March. After I hung up, Marcus was staring at me with something approaching awe. $31 million in cash. Operating capital. We maintain significant liquid assets to fund expansion, handle large development projects, and weather any economic downturns. And you're opening another facility. Our third major development center. We have the main facility here, a secondary center in Austin, and now Boston. The East Coast location will help us serve our Ivy League clients more effectively. Marcus sat down on my front steps, overwhelmed by the scope of everything he'd learned. Emma, how can we ever make this up to you? How can we apologize for years of treating you like a failure when you were building an empire? I considered his question carefully. You can start by understanding that success comes in many different forms. You can stop judging people's worth by their possessions. And you can recognize that the most successful people often don't need to advertise their achievements. What else? You can acknowledge that my work helping children gain access to technology education is not just valid but vital. The students we serve today will become the technology leaders of tomorrow. Done. Absolutely done. And you can stop being embarrassed by my Honda. It's a reliable car that serves its purpose well. Marcus let out a real laugh, the first one I'd heard from him all day. I promise I'll never complain about your Honda again. My phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. Marcus, what's taking so long? Did you finish explaining to Emma why she needs to get her life together? I held out the screen for Marcus to see. What should I say back? Tell her I'll happily talk about my life choices at the next family gathering. And tell her I might drive a different car to the country club. He raised an eyebrow. Which one? I haven't picked yet. Maybe the Lamborghini. It's been a while since I've taken it for a proper spin. Marcus glanced at the garage where 3 supercars waited, easily worth $750,000. They're all going to be stunned. Good. Maybe next time, they'll ask about people's lives before jumping to conclusions. As Marcus headed to leave, he paused and looked back at me. Emma, can I ask something personal? Go ahead. When I yelled at you about your car being embarrassing, what were you thinking? I smiled, remembering exactly what had gone through my mind. I was thinking you cared more about strangers at the country club than you did about your own sister's success. And now? Now I'm thinking this family still has a shot at learning what really matters. He slid back into his Porsche. Somehow, it didn't look as flashy anymore. Emma, yeah. Thanks for not giving up on us, even when we gave up on you. As I watched his taillights disappear down Millbrook Drive, I realized that sometimes the best response to judgment isn't argument or explanation. Sometimes it's simply letting people follow you home and discover how wrong their assumptions have been. My phone started ringing almost immediately. First Victoria, then Mom, then Dad. Marcus had clearly made some urgent phone calls. I let them all go to voicemail. Tomorrow would be soon enough for conversations about respect, success, and the difference between appearing wealthy and actually being wealthy. But tonight, I was going to take the Ferrari for a drive through the city with all its windows down and its engine singing, just because I could. After all, when you've built a $94 million fortune by age 31 while simultaneously running charitable programs that have helped 15,000 children, you've earned the right to enjoy your success, even if you prefer to keep it quietly parked in an unassuming garage.